Hi everyone, I hope you're having a great week. I'm here today to have a chat and also to tell you a story. I wanted to film this outside because it's so beautiful at the moment, but it's also really windy, so I decided that wouldn't be a good idea. So instead I'm inside with our new houseplant child. This is Hagrid. He is a mistletoe cactus. And before I get started, I'm doing 2 events in the next couple of weeks in London if you happen to be around and you would like to come. The first is on Thursday, the 7th of November, yes, and it's on the history of fairy tales. I'm giving a talk on the history of fairy tales and it's going to be loads of fun. And then later this month I'm running an in-person poetry workshop at Clean Prose as well. Details all in the description box down below. If you'd like to come along, that would be great. So today, as I'm uploading this, it is Halloween, so I decided I would sit down and read you a slightly scary story. So I'm going to read you the first story from my book, The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night, which is called Animals. I don't think I've ever read it on this channel before. I was having so much deja vu, but I went through all of my videos and I haven't. I think I read the first couple of pages when the book came out to give you a taster, but I've never sat down and read the whole book to you. The whole book? I'm not doing that today. The whole first story. And the first story is inspired by Frankenstein, so I thought it would be quite a good thing to do on Halloween. If you're not going anywhere and you just want to stay in and listen to a scary story, then I'm here for you. If it's not Halloween when you're watching this and you still want a scary story, I am also here for you. So yeah, it's the first story in the book. If you would like to purchase this book and read it, that would be amazing. 1, because I hope that you will enjoy it, and 2, because it helps me eat and pay rent and all of that stuff. You can get it in any bookshop, any good bookshop. And also if you would like a signed copy, I often do events or I ship signed copies worldwide from my website and can dedicate to whoever you like. So I'll leave lots of links down below, but you can go to a bookshop or a library and pick up a copy. What do you think, Lola? Should we read a story? She doesn't look that excited, it must be said. It's just, you know, keeping me grounded and all of that. Okay, so this story is called Animals. No, can you hear that as soon as I started saying that? Building work. No! I think we might have to move to a different location because that noise is going to annoy me and you. So let's find somewhere quieter. Okay, I've come into my bedroom. The lighting is not as good in here, but maybe that's good for a scary story. You want it to be a little bit dark. Let's hope that roadworks don't start happening on this side of the house. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Maybe I'll just have to change rooms every time I change scenes. Maybe that's just going to be a thing for this video. Let's wait and see. So as I said, this short story is called Animals and it's the first from my collection, The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night. These days, you can find anything you need at the click of a button. That's why I bought her heart online. It was delivered this morning along with my groceries, tucked inside a cardboard box, red oozing out the sides. They tied a half-hearted bow around the edges, a tag with promises of customer satisfaction and a 30-day warranty. Our hearts have played classical music from the moment they begin to grow. Bred to love, built to last. It is crimson. I lift it out and the heart spreads itself across my palm like an octopus. I tickle one of its valves and it flops down onto the kitchen counter, panicking. I pick it up again. I've heard other men talk of fishing and hauling, of holding gasping flounder in their fists that they then throw on an open fire. Perhaps this is it. The heart flutters. There isn't anything quite like holding love in your bare hands. I read the blood-soaked leaflet stuck to the bottom of the box. This heart is from a swan. Good. They say birds are easy to tame. There, little one, I say. It's going to be okay. I stroke it gently with one finger and whistle bird song. It visibly calms. First things first, you need to treat hearts the same way you treat pets. That's something my mother understood just fine. You shower hearts profusely and then stop. The stopping is important. You have to wait for the heart to become desperate, wait for it to think you've forgotten all about it. Then, and only then, do you smother it again with love and affection. It's the only way. It's how hearts grow. It's how they learn to never leave your side. Hearts also need good nutrition and plenty of exercise. If you purchase one, keep it hydrated. If you're new to this, you need to buy yourself a heart case until you decide whether or not this is the one. Hearts come in all different shapes and sizes, of course, but they don't need bespoke sleeping quarters, just somewhere warm and damp close to human skin. My mother said correctly that love can fill any room. I'd recommend keeping your heart case strapped to your chest under your clothes to stop dogs chasing you down the street. Make sure you buy your heart from a reputable source too. I once bought a faulty one that took on a will of its own and tried to bury its way under my skin. I'd never felt pain like it. That was the last time I took a seller recommendation from my next door neighbour. Mind you, he's been using glass hearts for the best part of a year now, and neither he nor his partner look happy about it. More fool them. I slide the swan heart into my heart case and hide it under my jumper, feeling the pulse of both my heart and the swan heart slightly out of sync. Love needs to be trained in warmth and rhythm and reliability. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I rinse out the box the heart came in. Cora always likes to say that I use too much washing up liquid, but there's no crime in wanting things clean. I slot the box into the recycling. Recycling is important. You shouldn't litter the world. That's why I've kept her. Most of her, anyway. I check on Cora and go into my study to Google swan. The Celtic goddess of sleep transforms into a swan every other year. There are 7 types of swan, including mute swans and tundra swans. Swans aggressively protect their nests. Swans mate for life. Swan meat was a delicacy during the reign of Elizabeth I, reserved for the wealthy and noble. The word swan comes from the Indo-European root swen, which means to sound, to sing. I do like it when Cora sings. I put on my shoes to head to the park. On the way out, I spy Thomas watering his garden. He's humming a tune I'm not familiar with and stands in a sea of blue forget-me-nots. He raises his hand in an effort at hello, but he's looking elsewhere. I raise a hand back just in case he sees, and I stride away. Many hundreds of years ago, a poet was walking along the Boyne River in Ireland and saw a flock of swans flying high above him. He picked up a stone and threw it in their direction, and one of the swans tumbled out of the sky. The poet ran to catch it and saw that it was no longer a swan but a woman. Her arm was broken, and she looked up at him wildly and said, "Thank you. Demons came to my deathbed and turned me into a bird. I've been trapped ever since and flying for so long. I didn't know if it would ever end." The poet held her close, then took her home, and her heart was thumping, thumping, thumping. The number 81 bus is a hive of misery. The woman sitting next to me is attached to a portable oxygen machine. She tries to hide it under a blanket, but it's not something you can easily conceal. She's been sitting down for at least 4 stops, but I can still hear her breath rattling. She constantly checks her pulse. Every so often she heaves as though her organs are trying to propel themselves out into the world. I grimace. We all do. Stupid woman. I can almost smell the meat rotting away inside her. We turn our heads to the window in unison and pretend she doesn't exist. I do a gentle lap around the pond when I arrive at the park. My resting heart rate is approximately 50 beats per minute. This is impressive, of course, but I try not to tell too many people, although it inevitably slips into conversations. I don't want to make others feel bad about themselves. I try to focus on my breathing as I jog. I think of 2 swans and their necks meeting to form the shape of a heart. I think of Swan Lake and mistaken identities. I think of Zeus tumbling down to earth to cause chaos as a god hidden in a swan's body, and I yell as a flyaway football narrowly misses the side of my chest. I cross my arms and continue running, blood pounding in my ears and the swan heart beating so furiously it sounds like it's trying to take off. At the far end of the park, there is a bandstand. People are clustered around a brass quartet who are blue in the face, and a man in a ridiculous heart costume. He dances on the spot, both to keep warm and to draw attention to the money box he is shaking in people's faces. All proceeds go to the British Love Foundation. Please give generously. Give me strength. I dodge the crowd and finally find what I've been looking for. A young boy and his mother are feeding the ducks, and next to those squabbling ducks is a swan. Huge, white, majestic. The swan heart strains to the edge of its case at the sound of water and other birds. There are many people milling around. This might cause a scene. Then again, they do say that love loves an audience, so I pick up a stone from the side of the path, take careful aim, and fling. The young boy screams, and someone drops their tuba. Most people pretend not to notice the dead swan draped over my shoulders as I walk back home. They part to let me through, some tutting as they do so. The swan is heavier than it looks, and its wings keep trailing along the ground, tripping me up. I hoist it higher. Its neck dangles down, head bouncing off the case of the swan heart beneath, which is practically chirruping. The bus driver refused to let me on, miserable bastard, but the exercise will do me good. I'm sweating, in spite of the wind. Thomas is still watering his garden when I get home. There are pools forming around his ankles. Hey, he says, waving with the wrong hand so the sprinkler he's holding douses his clothes. Oh, nice swan. Thanks, I say. Is it all right? It looks a bit floppy. It's dead. Oh, he shudders. Doesn't the Queen own all the swans in the country or something? I fumble for my keys. Bye, Thomas. Oh, okay. Bye. I slam the door behind me and let the swan tumble to the floor. It stares up at me blankly. He's right though, Thomas. The Queen technically does own all unmarked swans in open water. Not that she ever exercises her rights. They don't make queens like they used to. There was a time when jealous queens ate the hearts of their daughters. Elizabeth of Austria, a real-life 19th century princess, used to sleep with raw meat on her face to keep her skin young and freckle-free. She had hair that took hours to brush, and she would wash it with egg yolk and brandy. At the age of 60, she was stabbed through the heart by an anarchist who thought she looked ugly. Her corset was so tight that she didn't die for several hours. Her heart bled out slowly, twitching in a cage. Birds and hearts are similar in so many ways, you see. I nudge the dead swan with my foot. It's like poetry, really. I check on Cora, who hasn't moved, and drag the bird into the kitchen. It takes an age to pluck as I try to keep the feathers whole. I'll get Cora to make a skirt with them, one that sweeps the floor. She can wear it along with her bearskin coat and wolf-tooth crown, and I'll take her dancing. The white feathers gleaming against her dark skin, the two of us never breaking eye contact so everyone else feels uncomfortable. We can arch our necks and point our feet, parade across the floor. Swans were sacred to Druids, who thought they represented the soul. They believed these birds could travel between our world and the world of the dead, and because storytellers brought news from all worlds, they were given ceremonial cloaks called tujin, made out of songbird feathers. The hoods of these cloaks were decorated with the feathers of a swan. Cora loves stories. She deserves a cloak of feathers. I take off my jumper and unstrap the heart case underneath. I don't want to distress my newly bought heart by keeping it on me as I dissect my kill. I can almost hear it resisting as I put it down, away from the warmth of my body. It shudders slightly. It misses me. Good. I pull on an apron and close the blinds. I sharpen my knives. Butchery is an art form lost on many. The 6 o'clock news filters out from the radio. Today's headlines. US scientists remain skeptical of North Korea's claims it has created the elixir of love. A video from a woman in Northern England has gone viral in which she says she is willing to donate her heart to save someone else's relationship. The suicidal 42-year-old from Northumberland is currently accepting couple CVs via email so she can pick one to donate her heart to. I slice through the breast meat. The Aphrodite Heart Factory in East London has seen a record number of animal rights protesters after its announcement that it intends to open 5 new branches just north of the city. The activists, who have all rejected animal heart transplants and choose instead to live with heart disease, are petitioning for the abolition of the animal heart market. The Prime Minister calls for calm, insisting that these new factories are simply a precautionary measure, not a sign that love levels are plummeting to an all-time low. He released this statement earlier this afternoon. Whilst we continue to manufacture hearts for our own needs, we must also take great care to cater for others by sending out hearts and doctors to those suffering in foreign lands. Love translates into all languages and should know no bounds. I locate the swan's wishbone and put it to one side for later. Then I pull the swan heart out from its ribcage, blood congealing on my fingertips. It's a special moment. It's still warm. I lick my lips. It's not unusual to eat animal hearts. Dare I say, it's not unusual to eat human hearts either. There are odd people out there who place adverts looking for strangers to eat their hearts while they struggle to stay alive, which is hardly arousing, but the actual act of eating human hearts goes back centuries, probably millennia. One eccentric in the 1800s, William Buckland, used to eat all manner of strange things: blue bottles and toasted mice, panthers and puppies. At least I don't do that. Mind you, William did also eat the heart of Louis XIV, which had been embalmed for 150 years. He simply grabbed the silver container on display at dinner, ripped out the contents and swallowed it whole. That's not something that I'd particularly recommend. Hearts should be fresh, still beating, if at all possible. I trim the fat from the edges of the swan heart and begin working on a marinade. My favourite is a simple one. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 of sherry vinegar, a splash of Worcestershire sauce, a pinch of salt, oregano and black pepper. I chop the heart finely and line it in the marinade. It'll need to sit for an hour or so, enough time for me to clean up, freeze the carcass, make a side salad and check on everything downstairs. The swan heart I bought online still sits on the countertop. It's beating slower than before. Every so often it jumps in its case trying to get my attention. I wonder if it's concerned that I'm about to cut it up into tiny pieces too. Part of me feels sorry for it, like a fool. I make soothing noises and reattach it to my chest. The heart sighs with relief. We're bonding. Once I've cooked and eaten tonight's meal, we'll bond further. Independent studies have shown that if a human consumes a heart from the same species intended to be put inside his or her lover, then there is a greater chance of creating a lifetime bond. Love consumes you, so you must consume it. I carry the chopping board to the sink, squeeze in a good amount of washing up liquid and relish the silence where a reprimand would be. Through the kitchen blinds, suds up to my elbows, I spied Thomas and James in their living room. They're sitting side by side on their new designer sofa. No doubt they're deliberately leaving their curtains open so the world can see. A poster image for a glass heart relationship, like a bloody art installation. The water's a murky red, so I drain it and refill. Thomas and James appear to be watching television, though their expressions give nothing away. They were far more interesting when they argued and fought and cared about each other. I'll never understand glass hearts. Glass may be recyclable, but it's also cold and weak, amorphous with no clear shape or form. Charles VI of France believed that he was made out of glass. He carried pieces of iron in his clothing to protect himself from breaking. Fragile and precious, he was called Charles the Mad and Charles the Well-Beloved. Well, that's not the kind of love that I want, even if it does sit on a designer sofa. I look around me. The kitchen floor is covered with feathers. There's a bloody handprint on the freezer door. You can't say it's not exciting. I grab the disinfectant. It's dark outside, and every house on the street is glowing like a planet. Every house, that is, apart from the Jury's at number 143. Their semi-detached is a black hole. I'm not one for gossip, but last month I heard they'd opted for a joint heart replacement after it emerged that Mrs. Drury had been somewhat unfaithful. They thought it would be romantic to go under the knife together and wake up with 2 new hearts. French angelfish hearts, to be precise. They'd picked them out together, genetically modified to beat as one. Ugh. I gather a fistful of feathers. Love doesn't work like that. Love needs the dominant one to take the lead. Couples have tried before to have their hearts replaced simultaneously, even lying side by side on an operating table, falling asleep while holding hands, but they've all woken up and looked at each other and not known who it is that they're looking at. Their heart's just simply not in it anymore. I haven't seen the Drurys in weeks, though I spied their daughter packing her car with suitcases at the crack of dawn on Tuesday. She's one of those awful new age newbie arseholes who have made a pact to focus on their own well-being, to never settle down with anyone lest they get their hearts smashed to pieces. They blame the older generations for turning the world into a loveless place. They say they can make it on their own, that they don't need other halves. They wear badges that say things like, no love, no problems, as though life can be that simple. Not that it's safe having a youthful, perfect heart anyway, wandering the streets all shiny and new. We've all heard the rumours about small, remote villages that have been ransacked overnight by groups of expert thieves, whole pockets of civilizations that have had their hearts wrenched out of their chests to sell on the black market. Some say that those villagers keep on living, wandering, listless, unable to love, unable to die, homes of heartless quiet. The closest we get here is jealous lovers turning to murder, but that's nothing new. Then there are the swingers, couples who want to swap hearts with other couples just for fun. But why bother to go out and find someone else when you can mould what you already have? I hang up my rubber gloves and stroke the heart case. The swan heart purrs. Cora is still sleeping in the next room. Her head wound is healing nicely, her chest a gaping hole with a pump firmly attached. I still need to unpack her open suitcase, though most of the garments are strewn across the carpet like human feathers, like the times we'd hastily undress and fling our clothes across the floor. We were animals back then, biting each other's lips. How vicious, how unpredictable. I inject Cora with a fresh dose of anaesthetic, tuck her in, kiss her forehead, and tell her another story. Once upon a time, a girl's father married a witch. The witch turned her 6 brothers into swans, and they flew away. Worried she would also be turned into a swan, the young girl packed her suitcase and hid in the deep forest, where the sunlight rarely visited, and there were many eyes looking out at her from the bodies of trees. There, one of the swan brothers found her. Flapping his wings, he told his sister that she had the power to save them because her heart was so good. He said if she sewed 6 tunics made out of flowers, they would put them on and they'd turn back into humans. He said it was a secret spell, and she wasn't allowed to talk to anyone until the tunics were finished. He said if she did, the spell wouldn't work. So the girl collected as many flowers as she could, and she began to sew. She sewed sitting in a tree so the wolves couldn't get her, but the world is a dark place full of many kinds of wolves. A group of men out hunting found the strange girl sewing flowers and asked her what she was doing. She couldn't speak, so she smiled, but that wasn't enough. She threw them her bracelet, which they caught, but that wasn't enough either, so she took off her clothes and dropped them to the floor, in the hope they would see her good heart shining out through her chest. Then they smiled back, and they climbed up the tree, and they decided to take her home. She was taken to the young king of a neighbouring realm. He looked at this silent girl with her good heart and bought her immediately. She married him without speaking a word. The king's mother was angry about the marriage because no one was good enough for her only son. For the next few years, this new queen continued to sew flower tunics without speaking, but the task was taking a long time because her mother-in-law destroyed every tunic out of spite, and she could only sew during the spring and summer months, for in the autumn all of the flowers died. "That silent girl is full of secrets," the mother-in-law muttered. "My heart is stronger than hers will ever be." When the silent queen gave birth to a child, the mother-in-law stole it and ordered that it be killed and baked in a pie. She smeared blood on the queen's mouth and told her son that his bride had eaten their daughter. "Did you do it?" he asked his wife. She shook her head, but said nothing. Crying, she went back to sewing tunics made of flowers, and the mother-in-law kept burning them one by one. When the silent queen gave birth to her second child, the same thing happened. The mother-in-law smeared blood across the queen's mouth and ordered the baby be killed. "Did you do it?" the king asked. The queen shook her head and said nothing at all. "Her silent heart is a trap," the king's mother whispered to her son. "My heart is better. Time to burn her so she finds her words. Time to burn her until she shouts and screams." The morning the queen was to be burned, she walked down to the courtyard. She'd been up all night sewing as fast as she could, for several weeks earlier she'd found a secret place to hide the tunics. This time they hadn't been destroyed, and now she had enough. She carried 5 tunics made of flowers and a 6th nearly complete but with one sleeve missing. As the fire was lit, she threw the tunics into the air and 6 swans appeared on the horizon. They swooped down and pulled on the tunics and immediately turned back into her brothers. The 6th still had a swan arm attached to his human body, which he flexed and admired in the light of the sun. With the spell broken, the mute queen was able to speak. She told her husband how his mother had murdered their children, how she chopped them into pieces and baked them into pies. The king clasped his chest and declared his mother a witch. They tied her to a tree and burned her at the stake. Her skin melted in the heat and her blood began to boil, but her heart was so cold the fire couldn't touch it. The king pulled his mother's heart from the flames and put it in a jar. He placed it on the mantelpiece where it shone blue in the dark. Then the swan boys danced and the silent girl sang, and the king wondered at the strangeness of the world. I keep Cora's hearts in the basement. They hang suspended in vases of alcohol. Her original heart is on the left, vaguely purple. Then the wolf heart, glistening silver, the deer heart turning blue, the fox heart shrinking slowly, and her most recent, the bear heart, growling quietly to itself. Is it terribly cliched to think of this as a room filled with love? Failed love, obviously, but love nevertheless. I like to come here when I need reminding that everything can be fixed, that the world just needs medicine, and people can change. People do change. I've seen it. I've made it happen. It's not unusual to keep hearts. Royals once demanded their hearts be buried apart from their bodies, and butchers and cooks were hired to cut them free. When Henry I died in Normandy after eating poisonous eels, his heart was sewn into the hide of a bull and taken back to England. The rest of him was left in France to rot under the ground. Home is where the heart is. I found Cora 10 years ago. We both had articles published in the same journal. Hers was on the history of fairy tales, mine on the poetry of the Romantics. In my essay, I touched on the death of Percy Shelley, how, when he was cremated, his friend Edward Trelawney had reached in and pulled his heart from the flames. His wife, Mary Shelley, took him to court and fought hard to get her husband's heart back. She won, and she kept it in her writing desk until the day she died. And people wonder where Frankenstein comes from. That evening, as Cora listened to me, not saying a word, I could see her good heart shining out through her chest, thundering and garbling like some underwater train, vines sneaking up to block out the world, and a homemade floral dress glowing amber in the dark. In the Middle Ages, people believed that a heart contained a person's soul, that all of their beliefs, thoughts, feelings, and memories lived inside there as though written inside a book. God was thought to have a copy of everyone's hearts, with records of how good or bad they were scribbled inside. Sometimes he would write on these records, and this writing would transmit to the replicas in the human bodies on earth. There are legends of saints who were said to have images drawn on their organs by divine power, touched by the hand of God. So when we say we are turning over a new leaf, we are referring to the book of our heart. It means we are starting over, making fresh starts, new hearts. This swan heart will be Cora's 5th heart in 10 years, her 4th in the last 2. The fox heart made her nocturnal. The deer heart made her flee. The bear heart made her possessive. The wolf heart gave her rage. The swan heart clamours in its case. I head back upstairs. The house feels like it's breathing. This is home. This is home. This is home. My mother's heart sits on the mantelpiece, baby blue, encased in glass. Next to it, my wedding present to Cora, a replica of a French tapestry from 1400 called The Offering of the Heart. It shows a man giving his pulsing heart to a woman, a symbol of his devotion, love as an art form. In 1956, Erich Fromm wrote a book called The Art of Loving. In it, he argued that the active character of true love requires 4 basic elements: care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge. Love is a decision, he said. It is a judgment, it is a promise. If love were only a feeling, there would be no basis for the promise to love each other forever. Love isn't something natural. It isn't a feeling. It is a practice. Cora said my mother loved me an unhealthy amount. Whilst the world was running out of love, my mother was trying to hoard it. She clung to me so desperately. Cora deemed it unnatural. For that is what love is. She told me I'd better deal with it, or else she'd leave forever. So I did. I admit, it felt strange holding a pillow over my mother's face like that. How, when I carved her open to extract her overflowing heart, her body was still twitching. How I used 5 bottles of washing up liquid to get the blood off the kitchen floor. How I burnt her body in the backyard and sprinkled her ashes on the orange trees. When I came home, carrying my mother's heart, Cora screamed. She claimed she'd never meant for me to go that far. She yelled that she'd only meant I should talk to her. She cried that just the thought of what I had done made her sick. That's the first time she tried to leave me. But despite Cora's protests, all her academic research into fairy tales had shown that for love to flourish, parents needed to die. And as I grabbed her by the wrist and dragged her back inside the house, I reminded her of that very fact and spat, aren't all of us just trying to find our happily ever after? Hundreds of years ago, when French kings and queens died, their hearts were mummified in silver urns and hidden in various cathedrals across the city of Paris. During the Revolution, these were stolen by revolutionaries, and some hearts were sold in secret to artists. They liquidized them, mixed them with myrrh, and created a highly sought-after paint called mummy brown. They say a mother's love is truly unconditional. If these factory-created hearts keep failing, perhaps I can put my mother's heart inside Cora. Perhaps that is the answer. I take the swan heart out of its case and place it on top of Cora's cold skin. It twitches as though trying to get back to me. It's wondering where I am. Hearts are babies. Beating, blind, vulnerable babies. I scoop the heart back up and it shudders with pleasure. I throw it from palm to palm and watch it switch between panic and joy. Then I stroke it and hold it close, and it curls up to go to sleep. When this heart cannot survive without me, when it constantly whimpers and diminishes if away from my side, that is when I will place it inside Cora. And Cora will come back to me, wide-eyed and so deeply in love that she won't know how to function properly. She'll need me, really, truly need me. No shouting, no packing her bags, no trying to run away from a man she says she can no longer stand. She will love me. I will make her love me. The timer in the kitchen pings. Long ago, there was a giant in Norway who kept his heart outside his body so that he could live forever. But keeping his heart somewhere else had its downside too. He turned men to stone in rage, for they could love and he could not, and he locked a princess inside his house to stop her marrying the sons of kings. One day, a prince whose 6 brothers had already been turned to stone by the giant entered the giant's house and found the princess there. She told him they would have to find the giant's heart and destroy it so she could be released. The giant said it was buried under the floor, but that was a lie. He said it was in the cupboard, but that was a lie too. Finally, the giant laughed and said he kept his heart on a faraway island inside a warm egg in the nest of a swan. The prince went in search of this faraway island, and at last he found the giant's heart inside an egg in the nest of a swan. He squeezed the egg, and the giant cried out in pain, clutching his chest. He sank to his knees and asked for forgiveness. The prince gleefully demanded he release his stone victims and the princess first. The giant did so scared was he for the fate of his heart. The men became human, the princess was free, and the giant wept, believing he was saved. But then the prince smirked and crushed the giant's heart anyway, because hearts are meant to be crushed and you cannot hide them anywhere for love nor money, especially not love. I stroked Cora's cheek, her new heart dripping in my hand. The prince married the princess, and they loved each other until the love ran out. Then they fought and they cried and they filled themselves with hatred. Thank goodness we no longer live in a world like that. That's the end. If you would like to read the rest, you can purchase it at a bookshop. I'll also leave links down below. I don't